Hello, my name is TYlluan Penry. I'm a solitary pagan witch. I'm an author and the founder of the Wolf and Howl Press. And today's little chat is about how life tends to even out in the end. Now, a bit of a weird one, I suppose. But what I'm trying to say is that if you look around you, if your path, like mine, is very much linked to nature, you look around and you see that most things seem to come right in the end. In other words, most years the brambles will produce blackberries. Most years, the roses will blossom. Most years, you'll see the grass start to flower, because grass does have flowers. They don't look much like a flower, but they do. If you leave it alone and you don't go hacking at it. And that's not a call for us to be slack in what we do, but it's a call for us to just leave things alone sometimes. Realize when it's much healthier for you and probably healthier for everybody else if we just let things go. This isn't a fancy cape, by the way. This is a shawl I bought in a charity shop, and as you can see, it's rather sparkly, isn't it? So I thought I'd wear that today. Cheer myself up. But what I'm saying is that if you're not careful, you stop off at every little bump in the road. You either stop off to tamp it down, which is fine if you know somebody's coming behind you in a wheelchair or someone who doesn't see very well. Then yes, make the way a little bit clearer for them. That's good. You should do that. But sometimes, and you see it especially on social media, you will see people who simply cannot leave things alone. They have always got to pop in and start pointing out where you're wrong, they're right, there is no other way, my way or the highway, and all this sort of thing. And really, I feel sorry because it's such an awful waste of their time. They don't need it. They can just get on with their lives. If you don't like something you see, provided, by all means call out racism and homophobia and stuff like that, yes, fine. Call that out. Stop and call that out, because it is wrong. It is bigoted. It's wrong. But don't start picking on every little thing you see, because there are people who do that. They can't leave it alone, you look rough, you're this, you're that. Your house is a mess, this is wrong, that's wrong, your opinions are all wrong. And honestly, where does it get them? They waste a lot of time, they waste other people's time in trying to have an argument. And that's where that saying comes from, don't feed the troll, because it's a waste of time. They're always going to be trolls if they're like that. So just bear in mind that life has a way, if we allow it, if we work towards it, it will eventually even itself out. Now, I'll give you an example. Every year I have a wild rose that grows up the side of my house and reaches the attic, the apex of the attic. Now, it does that every year. It blooms on or about the 14th to the 16th of June. You can almost set your watch by it, but it didn't this year. It didn't. It was a bit later. And I thought, well, that's a bit weird, but it's just the way the weather, the climate, all of it changes sometimes. So it didn't come out then, but it did flower, just as lovely as ever, but it was a bit later. And by the same token, we often have an ant's wedding in the garden. The ant's wedding is when all the ants, the black ants, come churning out of the ground or the windowsills or what have you. And there are thousands of them, and lots of them with wings that fly off to make a new settlement. When I was a kid, we used to call it an ant's wedding. Always on or about the summer solstice, every year. But this year, no, it didn't. This year, it was much later. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes things seem to be a little bit late or a little bit early, whatever. Don't have hysterics about it. It'll probably all come in its own good time, just as things do in our lives. Mostly, I know some people have some wretched luck. I'm deeply sorry for that. We should try and help people when we can. But equally, there are times when we see things and really just walk on by because they're trying to provoke you. But really, in a lifetime, most of the things we yearn for, most of the things we long for, they'll come eventually. So it's just a little thought to leave you with. And another thing, just because I express an opinion does not mean I'm acting as a gatekeeper. I'm not. You are perfectly free to ignore this. You are perfectly free to walk on by and say, no, that's not for me. I do it with people's videos or their comments sometimes. But what you shouldn't do is go and stop and try and pick a fight, because that is a waste of your time. And all these things that will come to you eventually are going to be held up while you have a scrap with a perfect stranger online. There's no point in it. So it's just a thought. You know, as witches, we have to get our priorities right. It's just a thought. It's the best ways to do it. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.